On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt podcast, emergency funds are boring until they're not. So, welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt podcast. My name is Shawn Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, joined remote by your financial coach, George Crivello. How you doing, George?
I am doing well, Shawn. I think we're all remote. I think we're just trying to, do something together and talk about money and crushing debts and stuff. But I'm doing well. I gotta say one thing. I'm sending my oldest off to Pittsburgh. She's moving away, so I'm very sad because I thought my baby was going to be with us until she was 40, but I guess apparently
Right.
she has other plans. But very excited for her. We're doing that big move this upcoming weekend. And yeah, it's one of those where to all my parents that are kind of sending the kids off to school and sending the kids to college and sending them off into adulthood. I feel for you. It's a trying time right now. I'm a little sad.
Wow. And I'm a few years behind you, but we now have officially started high school and
Ooh.
seventh grade.
Hmm.
And Boy Scouts has officially started back up again. Soccer has officially started back up
The
again.
routine.
The routines have started back up again. But you would be proud of me.
Oh, I like it already.
So we were at the first meeting of the year for soccer, all the
Hmm.
parents and all the kids, and we're standing around. And I'd gotten an email from the coach earlier in the week or last week that said, "Hey, if nobody steps up to be team manager, would you do it?" And I emailed him back and I said, "Let's see who steps up at the team meeting and we'll
Good.
talk." Well, someone stepped up probably at the team meeting, so I am off the hook
Whew.
for team manager. I don't need that on my plate. I can just be the dad.
Yep.
And we for Boy Scouts. So last year I took all the training required to be an um, assistant troop leader, an
Okay.
assistant um, an assistant leader to the troop leader.
Okay.
And gosh, I can't remember. I don't remember the phrase, but anyway. So I'm one of the few assistant scoutmasters. I'm one of the few assistant scoutmasters that does not have anything assigned. So although I'm trained and I'm
Hmm.
eligible to be a scout assistant scoutmaster, so far I'm not doing anything for the Boy Scouts either. So I managed to get through both major activities of both of my kids without picking up any additional volunteer responsibilities.
Hey, you know what? So I'm proud of you because you are the man who steps up and says, "I'll take it on. I'll help out." And I love that for you. I love what you do from that standpoint. But you have to know your limits. You have to know your boundaries, my friend, because again, you'll overextend yourself. And again, you're doing great for the boys. You're doing great for the family. But at the end of the day, my friend, please, yeah, let's
Right.
let's not raise our hand for
Well,
everything. So
you know,
good for you.
my thought process behind all that too is that, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at the
Sure.
games. I'm going to be at the campouts. Why not be behind the scenes a little bit and have my kids know that I'm involved? But at this point, I've just got too much on my
Right.
plate. I mean, I'm sure as we're recording this, I'm going to get 75 more emails. So,
Fair enough.
so so yeah, no, I will be there to help out. And if somebody really needed something, obviously I would step up and do it.
Love
But
it. I hear you.
right, we're starting the fall with no additional volunteer activities.
Good job.
Right.
Everybody else who's doing that stuff as well, congrats on you. Again, let's not put more on our plate because we already have. I feel like all of us have enough to keep us busy. So that's a
Right.
good thing.
So I've got a question about today's episode.
Yeah.
Why is it that one unexpected expense knocks your entire financial life off track?
Well, because right now most of us are just flying by the seat of our pants, my friend. Isn't that what might be? So I think most of us we don't have certain things in place, right? We say emergency fund and right away we're thinking like, oh man, but the money's just that's boring. It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. But that's most Americans today, right? We always hear these statistics, but according to bank rates 2026 emergency savings report. You know it's got to be legit when they have that, right? But they're
Obviously.
saying only about 30% of Americans can pay about $1,000 emergency expense from their savings. So that's pretty low. That's pretty low from that standpoint. But here's another one. 1 in 4 Americans have zero emergency savings. 25%. And a third have more credit card debt than money saved.
Wow.
That's common, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of the common thing. But what we're saying here, like having an emergency and whatever that constitutes, like right now, if your car broke down tomorrow, right? You lost your job next week. Could you cover it, cover those types of expenses without touching, debt, credit card, loan, whatever it might be? And honestly, most Americans itself today, that answer is no.
No, I mean,
And
I'll admit if something happened to yes or law and I lost my entire stream of income, I'd probably have enough to get through 1 month,
yeah,
and that would be about it. So I have enough to cover. In fact, ironically, my car was about 5,000 miles and um, about 3 months overdue for its scheduled service.
sure.
And so when I took it in for service, I finally did take it in. I got the car serviced.
Hmm.
With everything that had to be done that wasn't done over the last now almost year, it was an $1,100 bill
Oof.
to get my car back. And
Yep.
so, you know, part of that probably was because I waited so long to service it.
Yep.
But my first instinct was, good Lord, I got to come up with an extra $1,100 right now. But,
Hmm.
that's where for me, I mean, it wasn't really an emergency, but because I knew, which is one of the things that I think we can talk about today is
Yeah.
when is it an emergency versus when is it something you didn't properly budget for?
Hmm.
But luckily, I had some money put away that I could pay and drive around my car for a little bit more time.
And again, you have a newer car, right? I'm already saying like I don't have a new car, my friend. I got a 2010. So my 2010s, whenever they're saying like, "Hey, we need to talk," right away, there's a cha-ching that goes right after that conversation. But again, for me, that the not having the car payment is kind of if I can save and put money aside specific to those bigger expenses, as long as it's not engine or transmission, right? That's kind of, like, hey, I'm
Right,
gonna, tires, brakes, oil change, maintenance. That for me, that's it's just making sure I'm ready for those events when it comes to my vehicle. But I think a lot of people, you're right. What is the definition of emergency? When we talk about, an emergency fund, money that's going to be used for that, it's pretty broad though than what people think, right? Right away, I'm thinking car, right?
right,
Medical, urgent care. Like if I need to go to urgent care, there's a deductible, or if I don't have insurance, I need to make sure I have coverage for an emergency, right? So
right.
any of those. So those are the kind of the ones right away. What else? What else do we think? Like home, maybe that's another one that comes to
Home,
mind.
yeah, there's been some home repairs that I've had to make. Some
Mm-hmm.
home repairs I'm still going to have to make.
You sure?
The other thing I was thinking of was not necessarily your medical emergency, but somebody else's medical
Right.
emergency. I mean, what if I had to fly to Tallahassee because my
There you
mom
go.
had a medical emergency or, something like that. So there's not only your medical emergencies, but other things that you need to kind of drop what you're doing and move to do. Um, but yeah, I think we need to, in terms of our budget, I think we need to get a better handle on what is an emergency really, and what
Right.
is something that I just need to better plan or prepare for.
I agree. Job loss and reduced income is kind of the ones that everybody thinks about when it comes to emergency. 3 to 6
Right,
months is what they always say. 3 to 6 months coverage. If you lost your job, if you were disabled, like if you go on disability, a lot of those things don't kick in for at least 30 days. So again, covering the expenses, between when you have the event and when it's activated, there's coverage there as well. Home
Right.
natural disasters, where again, we live in Florida. Hurricanes are going to happen. If you live in California, wildfires are going to happen. Winter storms, if you're in Chicago, probably going to be cold up there. So depending on where you live, you have natural disasters that could, possibly wreak some havoc on yours. Again, insurance is good, but let's keep it in mind. If you have insurance, there's probably a deductible. And sometimes it's not a flat fee. Here in Florida, I think a lot of the coverages are specific to percentages. So, hey,
Yeah.
if I'm a $300,000 home and there's a 2 to 5%, type coverage that you need to cover, that's six to $15,000 out of pocket every time there's a storm. So those
Right.
those are things that once again we don't think about unless we're in that situation. So I think that those are the things that we need to really think about. Like there's the importance of like, okay, now that we've defined emergency, what's the coverage? What's the amount? What is something that we need to be able to kind of cover that? It-
Well, and again, I think that comes back to budgeting. And so not only can you say, I want to build up $1,000
yeah.
emergency fund, but you could also say, I want to build up $1,000 car repair fund. I want to
Hmm.
build up $1,000 Christmas present fund. I want to build up $1,000 emergency medical fund. And you can
Right.
build all that stuff up. And one of the reasons I like doing that is because it helps you avoid getting into more debt by putting it on a card, getting into more debt by taking out like a personal loan or a payday advance loan.
Right.
It means you don't have to dip into your retirement, which, by the way, dipping into your retirement not only reduces the money you have for the future, but it causes tax consequences right now.
Yeah.
So dipping into your retirement is kind of a double whammy. It avoids you going into default because you had to choose between, do I get my car fixed or do I pay my rent? Do I get my car fixed or do I pay the Visa bill?
Right.
Or do I pay the Visa bill enough to pay it down enough to put enough room on it that I can pay my car repair? You don't have to make that kind of a decision. You don't have to worry about buy now, pay later. So
Right.
if you can save up some emergency money, it saves you from all these other, it prevents you from going hat in hand to family and saying, can I borrow some money?
Yeah, I mean, again, you kind of hit it right. The real cost of not having an emergency fund is you're more likely to have debt, right? You're going to go into credit cards, like you said. Right here, one of the statistics, it says workers without emergency savings are 13 times more likely to take a hardship withdrawal from their 401k. So they're trading in, like you said, long-term retirement security for a short-term fix.
Right.
So they're doing. The other thing that you mentioned too is, again, let's say the emergency cost goes onto a credit card. Instead of it being a one-time fee, right? A one-time cost coming out of the emergency fund, now it becomes interest bearing, right? You not only do you have the cost of the event that you're trying to cover, but now if you don't pay it off right away, it becomes a long-term debt. So I think
Right.
that
Now,
again, that's the cost of not having one, where it's not just a one time. Now it becomes something that follows you
well,
for
and
the future
not only that, but it follows you with interest.
with interest.
If
Correct.
it follows you with late charges if you pay it late. So it's not only just the money that you put on the money that you put on the card, or if you borrow from your 401k or pull from your 401k. If you pull from a retirement account, now you got tax consequences.
Yeah.
If you borrow from a retirement account, that still has to be paid back with an interest rate.
Right.
So that $1,000 emergency repair could become a $1,500 emergency repair by the time it's all said and done. A
Yep.
1750 emergency repair by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, but the other thing that you don't realize, right, too, I borrow off the 401k. So we have the hardship, or I borrow a loan, right? Even if I do a loan and stuff like that as well. It ends up, again, what if you lose your job and you still owe on that loan? That means that loan now becomes, you got to pay it off, or you have the penalties that are associated with those things. And
Right.
again, not all of us, have kind of worry about, I'm not going to lose my job, but then yet, the statistics say that, like, companies are scaling back. They're, reducing staff. So it's one of those where we're just playing with risk. We're risking it all just to kind of see, like, oh, maybe I won't get laid off and we'll be okay and I'll pay it back. So it's a uncomfortable feeling, and I can imagine the stress that's associated with that if we're starting to play these types of games when it comes to borrowing against these kind of accounts.
Well, and I think you kind of nailed it in terms of you never know what's going to happen. I
Right.
mean, for those who haven't really followed my story very much, I had another law firm. Yesner Law is my second law firm. And if you had asked me 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have told you that I was going to retire as a partner of that other
Of the
law
firm,
firm.
yeah, sure.
And 2012, circumstances changed and I had to leave that law firm. And when I left that law firm, my salary was cut in half. And it was the law firm that I had started
Hmm.
and I had to leave it and my salary got cut in half. So you never know
Yeah.
what's going to happen or when or where. Even if you say, well, I own the business. I mean, I filed three bankruptcies today from failed businesses. One was 20 years old. So you never really know when circumstances are going to change, which is why it's really important to keep that emergency fund.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And I'll give you my, again, I super corporate guy here, right? I love, in the past, but we had, was it the 2000s? There was, big change in the market, right? And people lost their jobs. Remember 08? 08, banking crisis. A lot of people lost their jobs. That happened as well. Again, COVID, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people lost their jobs. So it's one of those, yet like again, we're resilient, we'll make money. We think, the thought process is like, hey, we're gonna have some tough times, we'll bounce back, and all I have to do is make money, right? Make more money, and we're gonna be okay in these situations until you can't. And
Right.
again, history kind of shows us, right? Like I was laid off, right? And I had, loans in the 401k, thought I was being smart. And I'm like, oh, I can do these kind of things. And what ends up happening, you have to either pay them back or pay them back with penalties. So those are the things that we kind of learn that we think we're going to be in an okay situation until you're not. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid as part of these, the kind of the discussion is like, we understand, like we're all trying to do, this is what we have to do. Yeah, hey, I'm in the situation, I have to do what we got to do, right? We get that.
Right.
But what can we do to start building the fund, do something different without it feeling impossible? Because that's the next thing, Shawn, right? Like, but I had to. What? And now you're telling me not only did I have this emergency, but now you're telling me I got to save and be ready for the next event. How do I do
Well,
that without feeling this stress?
you know what so the first step to saving $1,000, save 100
You're right.
and then do that 10 times. And now you're at 1,000. One thing I just recently cut a whole bunch of expenses from the law firm. I went through the
Hmm.
budget and what do I need, what do I don't need, and I ended up saving a significant amount off the monthly budget. And so I gave myself a small raise. Now, when I gave myself that raise, what I did was I took um, probably about half of the raise
Sure.
and I added it to what automatically goes into savings every month.
Ooh, automation. Yep.
Well, and my thought process is I'm doing okay with the salary the law firm pays me right now. So if I get a raise, but I divert some of that into savings, I still feel like I'm getting more money when I do payroll every month.
Right.
I'm just not getting as much as the raise was because it's going into my savings account, but now my savings account is growing faster.
Right.
So, in other words, if your salary goes up $200 a paycheck, you don't have to increase your expenses by $200 a paycheck.
Right.
You could say, I want an extra $100 to go into my bank account, and I want the other $100 to go into my savings account,
There you go.
or 50 in my savings account and the rest in my regular account, or 50 in my regular account and the rest in my savings account. So that, step one, I think, to save $1,000, save 100, and then just do repeat that.
Do it 10 times. I love the idea. And again, I think a lot of us lifestyle creep is real. And we
Right,
we always think like we make more money and then that's all that's going to solve and we'll save more. But when we make more lifestyle stuff gets in the way. More expenses, always going to be more expenses. And that's where we're like,
right,
"Oh my goodness, how do I get out of this cycle?" Let me give you said automate. Love automation, right? Because you again,
right,
it's set it and forget it specific to savings. I love that. And again, you start with $10, start with $100, start with whatever it is. The number is start with something.
right,
If you want to be specific, because again, what's the typical answer when we talk about like, oh, I want to, what's an emergency fund? How much should be in there? People go right away, 3 to 6 months, right? 3 to 6 months of expenses. That seems overwhelming. And sometimes it's like vague, vague in a sense, because it's like 3 to 6 months of what expense, right? Why not be specific then in the beginning where it's like cover the cost of two tires, cover the
right,
cost of 1 month of rent, cover the cost of the deductible on your insurance, cover the cost of a typical home repair. Whatever that number is, start there. And maybe that starts
right,
with $200. Maybe that starts with, $1,000, 500. Like for me, it's like start with the specifics. And once we can convince ourselves that we can do that, then we can go and be more specific to kind of like 3 to 6 months of expenses, which will cover the family, will cover this. I think that's sometimes being specific helps us to be able to have
right.
a goal that's maybe not so big in the beginning.
Well, and again, it's an emergency fund. So by definition, you should only be touching it in the event of an emergency.
Mm,
So if I'm able to save $1,200 this year, $100 a month for 12 months, if I'm
sure.
able to save $1,200 this year, but I can bump that up to 150, that's now what, 50 times. So that's another 600 bucks. So
Yeah.
that 1,200 became 1,800 next year, became 3,000. And if I'm able to go up another, where that $1,800 becomes $2,500 the following year, and now I'm up to $5,500.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would also kind of say, don't punish yourself for having to dip into it. So if you get it up to
Mm,
$3,500, but you have an emergency and you have to spend $500, that's what it's for.
that's what its purpose.
Right. So don't beat yourself up. Now, if the emergency is I have to get, the newest designer jeans, then you got some issues that, that's a
Definition of
different.
emergency needs to be looked at. I agree with you
Right.
there. But that's the hard again, it's a lot of the clients that I work with as well. That's the hardest thing. Like when you start building that emergency fund, that number starts to go up and you're like, that's good. It's now five and
Right.
it's 1,000, it's a 10,000, it's five, whatever that number is. But then when the emergency comes, you're very reluctant to use it. But the purpose, again, that's the reason why that money was labeled, right? You're using it specifically for an emergency. And when you use it, you use it and it's okay. There's no feeling of like, ugh, that was terrible. You use the money. And then, of course, what's the first thing you do when you use the emergency fund?
You
Get
put it
back and
back.
replenish it. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Put it back.
And, some ideas I had around that as well, like I did with the law firm, you can go into your budget and you can say, when was the last time we watched Netflix? Do we really
Yeah.
need that subscription?
Yep.
What things do we have laying around the house? I mean, every year I donate a bunch of stuff to Goodwill and then take that as a deduction on taxes. So, what can I donate? What can I sell to make a
Yep.
little bit of extra money potentially? Can I pick up more time at work? Can I pick up overtime? Can I pick up a second job? Can I pick up a side hustle?
Hmm.
Can I cut some other kind of spending? It was funny on the drive home last night. My son said, "Hey, can you pick up some salmon because he's training for soccer and he understands that salmon is really healthy food. It's got all kinds of benefits.
Yep.
So hey, can you pick up salmon?" And then I'm driving home today and he says, "Hey, can we go to Chick-fil-A for dinner?" And I went, "Well, what happened to the I went and bought salmon last night.
We're making salmon.
What happened to the salmon?"
Yeah.
So there's no need to go out to the restaurants every night. You
Yeah.
can, pause some of that discretionary spending. You can get, one of the things a lot of us try to use the tax refund to buy stuff.
Yeah.
What if we use the tax refund to start or replenish or boost the savings account?
That's a great idea. It's money that you're overpaying. So it's not like we're getting money back, right? This is money that
Right.
we're overpaying the government to get back. But a lot of us in that we treat it as a bonus. Like, oh, there's money. We got extra cash. Let's do it. Anytime we have any type of bonus that comes in, extra commission, we had a good month, so the commission check's a little bit higher. The question is, what's the priority for you and what you do with your money? And when we're struggling, it feels better to just say, well, we're going to spend it, or we're going to spend it on a debt, or we're going to spend it on these kind of things, because it makes us, again, it's that feeling of making us feel better in those situations. It's boring to say, Shawn, I'm just going to use it to save and put a safety net in place. It sounds boring, but the idea though is having it in place so that the next time there's a type of crisis, some type of emergency, those situations don't turn into the most stressful event, in your life. But it's hard, right? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like, it's boring to say, Shawn, I'm just take that money, I'm going to put it, but I want to go to Disney. I want to
Oh,
go, you know?
so one other thing you can do is combine it with a reward. So,
Mm,
when I save up, I want to save $1,000,
sure.
but when I save up $1,200, I'm going to get myself something $100 or less that I really want,
Right.
or when I hit $5,000, I'm going to give myself permission to spend 500 of it on something that makes me feel good,
Yeah.
a vacation or
Yeah.
whatever. But there's nothing wrong with saying, here's my goal, and when I hit it, I'm going to do this for myself. And it doesn't
Extravagant.
even have to be $500. It could be
Yeah.
$50. It could be
Right.
$20. It could be, I'm gonna when I hit $5,000 in savings, I'm gonna tell my boss I don't want the overtime anymore. Or when I hit $2,500 in savings, I'm gonna take a PTO day and play hooky.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
It
Okay.
it doesn't have to be an expensive reward, but one of the things that might take the boredom out of it is giving yourself a reward for hitting your
Yeah.
goal.
Again, it's all about motivation. It's all about, I hate to say that the reward is there. You would think the reward is having money in the savings. I get it,
Right,
but we're talking mental gymnastics here that we're trying to
right.
do. So I understand where people are coming from realistically. So I like the idea of, like, again, it's okay, small reward. Don't use the emergency fund for the huge reward, but yes, hitting some of your goals could be tied to, we're going to do a, Chick-fil-A dinner. We're going to do something, whatever it is. I'm just going to say,
I, I don't know that my kids would say Chick-fil-A dinner is a reward versus just a regular dinner, but
dude,
whatever.
it's Thursday. Let I love that. I love that. Um, the one thing that I would keep folks in, when it comes to the emergency fund is not extra money, right? There's a purpose for the money. There's a purpose of
Right.
what it is for that reason. You determine what it is for an emergency. You determine when you're going to use that money. We're going to determine what that amount is. It's not, though, the extra money where you said, I'm going to use that money to, buy some jeans, buy some, and then we still kind of blend those. So for me, it's the discipline that you need to have in place is to kind of like, this money is for this. It's a separate account. Maybe don't have a debit card tied to it. You need it when you need it. You're transferring it into an account that you can then access. It's just,
Well,
again, more mental things to put in place for you.
well, well, and I'll maybe take it one step further is
Hmm.
that if my goal is to let's say my goal is to have um, $2,500 in my emergency fund account.
Hmm.
When I hit that, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, now I'm going to start a second fund
Yeah.
that's my vacation fund, and I want to get that funded up to 3 grand and take a nice vacation. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So once you hit the goal for the one account, set up a new account, make a different goal.
What's the new goal for, and that savings could be the next goal, right? You could be savings for vacation, could be savings for down payment for a home, could be savings for that ski do, whatever, or sea do.
Right.
I said ski do. That's funny. All
Whatever.
right, but you know what I'm saying? Like this is where the savings for the rainy day is there.
Right.
Now use the same superpower you're just starting to put together. Have it for those type of expenses, those kind of purchases. Now, the one thing is, Shawn, but I want it now. I need it now. That's the one discipline that we still have to have in place where it's like you have to be patient
Right.
that, as part of this process, because unless you're throwing $1,000 a paycheck into a savings for those kind of bigger purchases, you have to then put yourself in a discipline where, yeah, now is not an option. Let's save up for it and then see if you still want it by the time you have the money you get.
Well, and I think that's the most important key to all of this is discipline, which is why I think you and I like the automation so
Yeah.
much because the automation kind of bypasses the discipline.
Yeah.
You would need discipline to have it go into your general bank account and then move it over to savings. But if you automate it, you don't necessarily need that discipline. Now you only need the discipline not to touch it or spend it
Right.
or do whatever with it. So yeah, I think the key is discipline, which automation definitely helps with.
Yeah. And once you start getting some of the motivation, you start to see some of that, the discipline starts to get kicked in where, but I think if you're trying to start from the beginning where it's like I will put the money into the account. I think that's where the automation will help you because most
Right,
of us we have the intent to do the savings, but if by the time we get through all the expenses and the debts, our discipline might go, yeah, you know what, that money I might need it for something else, and we don't do it. So that the
right.
automation kind of helps us, especially in the beginning, to kickstart the consistency around I'm going to save 50, 100, 200, whatever that amount is. So I think I agree with you there. Bypass the discipline because most of us still love that Twinkie uh, at the end of the day. Oh, bud.
So I think I think we've kind of reached the end of today's episode.
I would say for the listeners, look at, is there a real emergency cost that we haven't, look into your budget, look into and seeing like how can we, if you don't have an emergency fund, again, don't fret, don't get stressed. But at the same time, what can you do? What's one thing you can change to be able to get that emergency fund going? And I always, you even said it, right? $50, $25, $100. Find that this week and see if we can start building on that going forward. Because again, it's, when an emergency is just an event rather than and an inconvenience, rather than it being a crisis, a moment of crisis. I think that's the feeling I think all of us are chasing, when we
Yeah.
talk about the statistics out there today.
Well, and I think what that, just to kind of add a little bit is that it's not only the finances that cause the issue. It's the stress of, oh my gosh, where am I going to get this money from?
Right. Right.
But if you've got that emergency fund saved up, not only do you have the financial ability that it's not going to crush you if you have an emergency. You've also got the peace of mind, which itself is hugely valuable as well. You're not spinning out of control because, oh my gosh, where am I going to get this money? I got to sell this. I got to do that. I
Right.
got to pick up 3 extra shifts. I've got to
Three
blah, blah, blah,
shifts,
blah,
right?
blah.
Overtime. But yep,
It,
yep.
it takes some of that anxiety away to just build it up. And like I said, celebrate the small victories. The fastest way to get to 1,000 is get to 100 and then just repeat that 10 times.
That's it.
So, gosh,
Love
anyway,
love it, bro.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's get ready for the next emergency
Let's get ready.
together.
You can get ready for the next emergency by going to patreon.com /crushing debt. That'll pay for the next emergency.
Crushing
No,
debt
that
emergency. I like it.
crushing debt emergency. No, it pays to help us with the show. So we do appreciate all of that. I think we've got the YouTube channel kind of going.
Kind of going, but we still got some work into going. But yes,
Okay.
we have
Okay.
we have some stuff out there, but we definitely want to, we're gonna start getting more out there for everybody too.
Okay. And gosh, other than that, happy start of school,
Yes.
happy football season, happy
Yes.
happy fall season. We got another round of preseason games on tonight, Thursday night, and I think the don't the Bucks play the Jets on
Yeah, preseason.
Friday?
Yeah. Something like that. It's
It's
soon.
it's a preseason game. Who cares?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't mind if we get rocked, but I just get me ready for the rest of the season.
yeah, I don't know that the starters are even going to play
No.
on Friday night, but we'll see. So in the meantime, we hope you have more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money, and we will talk to you in next week's episode.